Hello everyone, welcome to another very exciting tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can create this layout, this page layout that has some sort of a scroll indicator over here. So basically, right now we are in section 1 and each of the sections have the full height of the window. So if I start scrolling, which I'm doing right now, as you can see when the half of the section 2 or the next page gets shown, your indicator directly switches to the selected, and if I continue, you'll see that it will do it for all the pages. So for example, if I scroll all the way down, you'll see that this one is highlighted. The other option is that when you click on each of these indicators, it will actually scroll your page to the corresponding section. So now we are in section 2, section 3, section 4. And if I go to section 1, you'll see that it shows sort of the path to the first one, but also it switches to the section 2. So let's get started. I suggest if you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do and click on the bell icon to be notified. This channel hopefully will be one of the best channels in front-end development and in front-end technologies in this 2019. So as always, I'm going to codehus.com and going to front-end and choosing the online front-end editor. Switching to this layout because it's kind of easier and more spacious. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to create an unordered list and we'll give it a class navigation, right? And since I know how many sections I want, and those are 4, I'm just going to add 3 L4s. So like L by Li multiplied by 4. So now I have some sort of navigation that is going to end up over here. Let's go ahead and start styling this navigation. So for the starter navigation, I want to make the margin to be 0, padding to be 0 as well. Now, you see that there's no margin, no padding. That's good enough. For the navigation Li, I want to make sure that I have a width of, let's say 20 pixel for now. We can obviously fine tune it later. Height 20 pixel. Give it like a background color of maybe something like CCC. And then I will give it a border of 2 pixel solid and something darker, right? Like 999. So you can see that we have our sort of 4 LIs kind of styled this way. Just going to give it a border radius of 50%. Now they are all rounded. And then I obviously going to give margin bottom or maybe margin top, each one having like maybe 10 pixel. So now you will see that we have 3 sort of indicator item. I can see that they are a little bit big, so I'm going to switch this to maybe 10. It looks kind of better. Now, what I need to do is I need to put them right over here, right? In order to do that, and make sure when you scroll on the page, they don't go away. We need to make sure that this navigation has position fixed, right? So now we have position fixed. The only thing I need to do, set a right to be 0. As you can see, when I set the right to 0, it actually doesn't look so good. So I'm just going to make it maybe 10 pixel or even more, maybe 20 pixel. Not bad. You can see that we already see the sort of bullets for the LIs. In order to get rid of this on my navigation, which is an unordered list, I just set the list style to be none, right? So now those went away. Now, in order to center it vertically, since it's position fixed, I can just say top 50% and then transform, translate it in the y-axis for minus 50%, right? So now you can see that it pretty much got centered vertically, right? So far, so good. Now, uh, the other thing that we have here is like 4 sections that has a full height of the page. In order to get that, I'm just going to HTML and I will define a main container. And within that, I will define 4 sections, right? Section, 4 sections. Within each section, I'm just going to put a div slash div and let's name it section number 1. And this could be anything, right? Whatever text or whatever content you want to put, you can put over here. So now going to the section 2, I'm just gonna paste and paste like this. I'm just gonna go make it 2, 3, and 4. So now we have our markup ready. The next thing we want to do is to style this, right? So going back to my CSS, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say section, making sure that it has uh, basically a different background. Let's make the background to be maybe EEE. And you can see that there is some sort of a margin around this. It's white. I don't want it. So I'm going back to my body and then set the margin to be 0. So now there is no margin over here. So now in order to make the sections to have a 100% height of the window, I just need to make sure that the height is 100 VH, right? So now you can see that it actually, each of the sections have full height. I would give different colors to them. So I'm just going to go to codehus.com, front end, and the UI framework. We have this color palette section. I'm just going to randomly select maybe this color for the first one. So what I need to do, I'm just going to change the section color to be like this. And then going back, maybe choosing, I don't know, another color, like maybe this green. And here I would say I want a section with nth child second to have a background of this new color. So now you can see that the first one will have this color, the second one will have this color. Let's choose maybe something like this for the third one. So going back to copy this and make it 3. And since we have 4, I'm just gonna copy this and make it 4 as well, just to put it here. Going back to the colors in the Kotlin UI, copying this for the third one, background, and then I'm just going to go ahead and choose maybe this one for the fourth one. So going back here, making it fourth one, right? So now the first one is blue, green, and this color, and then this color, right? All right. So the next thing I would like to do is to center these section numbers. In order to do that, since I have put them in a div, I would say section and then div. As you can see here, all the divs are within the section. So I would say section div. And then I may be making the font size a little bit bigger, maybe even more, 40 pixel. And then I would always like to choose this the CSS link to this Kotlin UI library because I get a better font here. So I can even go to CSS and do the import. Oh, this is the original one. So here I'm just gonna do an import in my CSS section, import URL, and then I will paste this. So already you can see that I have a better sort of font over here. Now I want to center them. The only thing I need to do, I will need to set the position to be absolute, and then top 50%, left 50%, and then transform, translate, minus 50% and minus 50%. So now you can see that all of those section numbers are absolute and on top of each other. In order to fix this so that they end up in their own parents, I just need in the section to define position relative, right? So now this is my section 1, section 2, section 3, and section 4, right? And since I defined the section relative here, and as you can see, the indicator has gone away, but since the navigation has position fixed, I just need to define a z index to be maybe, I don't know, something big. So now you can see that we have our navigations, and it's like a little bit the borders are not as nice as I want, so I'll make sure that the border here is a little bit darker. So 333. So now it's a little bit better visible. So now I have to define two states. One is, if you notice in the original one that I show, you can see that they actually, when I hover, they have a different effect, but also when you select them, they actually have the same effect as if I hovered them, right? So they have a selected and a hover effect. In order to do that, I'm coming here saying navigation li hover. I want to make sure that maybe the scale, transform scale is a little bit bigger, maybe to 1.3. The default is 1, which is the same size. And now if I go hover, you can see that they become bigger. So I can see that I need a little bit more than that number. So now you can see that these become a little bit bigger. I can see that the margin between them is a little bit less than I want. So here in the margin top, instead of 10, I would make it 20. Now they have a little bit better and there's visually more appealing, right? So now, as you can see, it's a rigid sort of, there's no transition. When I hover, what I would like to do is on my LI, which indicates each of these, I would say transition and all and 0.3 seconds, right? Now, if I move over them, you can see that they have some sort of a clean sort of transition from the scale 1, which is the default, to this new scale that I have defined. So this is pretty good. But also, if I make one of these selected, so I'm just going to add class selected, which initially it should be because the first section is selected. I need to also add the same style for the selected. So I'm going to come here and make sure I copy this, and instead here, instead of hover, I would say selected, right? So now you can see that the first one got selected. All right, so enough for the styling at the moment. Now we need to add the interaction. So when you scroll down, you want to make sure that the correct indicator gets visualized, right? So going back to JavaScript world, what I need first is I need to have a reference to the sections that we have. So I'm just going to define const sections document dot query selector all, and I will pass my sections, right? Because I have my tags defined as the section, right? So I do have reference to that. The second thing you need to do is that when you scroll down, you can actually add an event listener for the scroll down on the window. So if I do window.add event listener and then say scroll, passing the second function here, I can actually get the scroll top or whatever the position of the window is at the time that I'm scrolling down. And the way to do that, I'm just going to open the Chrome's browser's inspector over here so that you can actually see it. So if I say basically console log, give me window dot scroll top, right? Now, if I scroll, look at here, when I scroll, the value gets to be shown in here. So as you can see right now, it's undefined. The reason being that this might be a function. No, that's not true. So let's see why this didn't work. Because when I add the window, add event listener, I should be able to, when I scroll down, I should be able to see the value. Switching back here in the JavaScript, I just get the correct. So yes, it is window scroll Y. So it's not scroll top, it's scroll Y, which makes sense when you vertically go down. Now, as you can see, you get the values over here when you scroll down. So this is a good thing because we need to know these values to see where we are in the page and basically highlight the sort of the indicator over here. I'm just going to close this down. So now what we need to do is every time we scroll down, we have to loop over all the sections and check where they are. And based on that, we should enable this, right? In order to do that, I'm just going to say sections dot for each of my sections. I add a function section, and then within that, I have to check something. So let's initially assign the scroll Y into a value. So this is my scroll top. I just set it to window.scroll Y. So basically this value is the same value as was shown in the console down there in the inspector. I need to basically know the value of this. And now, whenever I sort of go through the sections here, I want to check if um, the section dot offset top. So offset top indicates the top of the sections that we have here. So right now this is 0. The next one will have the, so like here, this will have the something like bigger because it's like 100 percent of the width of the height of the window. So the interaction that I'm looking for is that when I scroll down and the next sections comes and passes the half of the window. So right now it's not on half, but as soon as it passes here, since the majority of its section shows in the window, I want this one to be now getting to be selected. And going forward, again, when the third section passes the half of the window so that the more of this section is visible, I want the third one to be selected. In order to do that, I need to do this. So if section.offset top is smaller than what? So if my, as you can see, this is my scroll top. So the scroll top right now is at some number based on my scroll bar over here, right? So if the top of the section is less than scroll top plus this area in JavaScript is called window. So it's a fixed value. So I'm just going to go create a const window height. It's going to be window.inner height in JavaScript. So even if I console log this value, window height, if I open the inspector here, you'll see that we have a value here. Let me just make sure that we don't have any error here. I'm just going to comment it for now. You can see that the height of our window is 520. And this always will be 520 because that indicates this area of the window regardless of our scroll, right? So now I have the window height. Going back to my logic here for each section, if the section dot offset top, which denotes the top of each of these sections, is less than scroll top plus window height divided by 2. That's how we indicate the half of this. And if the scroll top is less than section.offset top plus, again, window height divided by 2, this logic over here, this if, will denote which section will be active. So the second parameter when you have when you have for each in JavaScript, you obviously have the section itself, but also you can have the sort of the index of that section. So starting from 0, 1, 2, 3. So I would just go ahead and console log that I. Basically, it loops over all the sections. For each section, if these rules apply, it will console log the index of that section. So this one is section 0, the second one is section 1, section 2, and section 3, based on the JavaScript indexing that starts from 0. So now here, if I would like to show you, right now, we are at section 0. So if I scroll, you see here the section is 0. The moment the second section passes half of the window, you will see that it becomes 1. Again, if I scroll down, it's 1, 1, 1. Now this one is going to become 2. So that's exactly what I need. How am I going to use it? Pretty easy. I know the index, and I know that I have these LIs over here. I just need to make sure that the correct LI gets the selected value. How are we going to do it? It's super easy. I'm just going to create a reference const navigation, making sure that this is document.query selector, and this is my navigation with the class dot navigation. This is my unordered list. Now what I can do is say navigation dot children. So this navigation now, as you can see, has 3 children, right? This is the 0 index, in the children as index 0. 1, 2, 3. And I already have the index of the section that corresponds, the number of sections corresponds to the number of these, right? So the only thing I need to do, I need to say I class list add selected, right? So now if I scroll down, as soon as it gets to the half, you can see that the second sort of navigation item will get activated, the third one, and the fourth one, right? The only thing we need to fix is that every time this happens, we need to reset the selected on all of the ones that were already previously selected. For that, I'm just going to create a function, reset, and then since I know I have this children sort of object on my navigation, I can do for var I equals to 0 to I less than navigation dot children dot length I plus plus, so it's a simple loop. I would say navigation dot children I dot class list dot remove the class selected. So every time this if happens, I just want to call this reset, right? And then when I call the reset, it will kind of removes all the selected from whatever it was, and then it will add the class selected for the one that is on this window. So now if I scroll down, you'll see that the second one, third one, and fourth one, right? So this is a pretty good thing. If I can feel like it might be a little bit complicated, but just to go through this again to make sure you all understand what this does, I'm just going to take the second one as an example. So it pretty much offset top gives the top of the section, right? So I will check if the section top, right? This is the section top of the second section. If it's less than the scroll top is window.scroll y. Basically, what this top means when we scroll down. So it's a higher value. Of course, right now it's 0, but as soon as you scroll down, it's going to have a positive value, which is more than 0. So now I check if my section offset top, which is up here, is less than this top plus half of the window, which right now is not, but you can see it's not passing the half, but the moment I pass it, this rule applies. And also I would make sure that my scroll top is basically less than the section offset top plus half of the window. The reason being that, as you can see the scroll top right now, if I go here, right here, you can see that the scroll top would be more than section offset top plus windows height divided by 2, right? That's the reason this rule applies when we scroll down. So the next section, the next thing that we need to do, we want to make sure that when we click on each of these, it actually scrolls up and down to the corresponding section, right? So here, as you can see in this one, when we click on the original one, when we click, it actually sort of scrolls to the corresponding section that we need to do, right? So now in order to do that, I will go to the one that we're working on. I just say document.query selector all navigation li. So each of the li's for each, I would just call it item, or basically passing a function item. And then I would say if it's clicked, item.add event listener clicked, then passing a function here. And then what I would need to do is that when it's clicked, as I told you before, for each gives you the index of that element, right? So I will pass I here as well. So when I click on it, what I need to do, there is a function called window.scroll2, right? And this function gets an object, x, meaning that what do you want to scroll to in the x-axis, and y, and also you can define some sort of a a behavior so that it actually sort of does a behavior like smooth or something. So now I don't do any scrolling on the x-axis, I only do on y. And I do have the index that I'm clicking on, right? I need to say y will be I multiplied by window height, right? I know that this has each section has the height of window, so window height, which I already have it in this variable over here. It's actually a constant. And then I just basically need to multiply the index of that item, which corresponds to the section, by the window height, and I just say behavior smooth, right? So now if I start clicking on the second one, it is supposed to scroll to the second one, third one, and fourth one. But for some reason it doesn't work. Let's see what the reason is. So we query document query selector all navigation for each function, item, and this item add event listener click, and then you do window scroll to yi, this one, multiplied by window height. So I hope I wrote it correctly. So basically what it should do, actually my mistake, it's not Y, it's top. So you have left for the x-axis and top for the y-axis. So now if I start clicking on this, you'll see that it actually goes to section 3 and section 4. As you can see, the animation is not happening. That's a question that I would like to know why. Is it because of the behavior that we have defined? I'm just going to go ahead and see if right, that's more like a misspelling over here, like that. And now if I click on the second one, you can see that it smoothly scrolls to the second one. If I click on the fourth one, it would scroll on the fourth one and coming back again. So just to wrap it up again, we what we need to do is that we add an event listener scroll on the window object, and then every time the scroll happens, we loop over using the for each on each of the sections that we have referenced. We loop over them and make sure that our rule applies. And the rule is that when this top of each section passes half of the window, we want the index of the corresponding indicator to be ready, to be active, to be selected. And this is the sort of the check that we do, like that, as you can see. And also we wanted to have the capability of clicking on each section and sort of smoothly scrolling to that section. So we looped over all of these items, added an event listener click for each, and based on the index of each, we multiplied that by the height of each section, which in this case is the window height, and then we set the behavior to be smooth, right? So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I actually wanted to do this tutorial for a long time. It had really good stuff. It had a little bit of a logic. It had event listeners like scroll. So pretty good sort of tutorial, and I'm super happy that I did this tutorial. If you had any questions, any concerns, any feedbacks, please go ahead and write them down in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, please, as always, like, share, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do. I wish you a great day and night, and see you next time. Goodbye.